Thanks, Dwayne. Yeah, my name's Russel, I'm an alcoholic addict. It's good to be here. It's always good to be asked to do something. It's good to be clean. It's good to be sober. And yeah, I'm quite nervous. Got performance anxiety. I've been there before, don't worry. And yeah, I've got no idea what I'm going to share. Sometimes I have good ideas about what I'm going to share, and then I forget them. And they totally go out of my head as soon as I open my mouth and say my name. And they're really clever. And so what I usually do, which seems to work, is I say a little prayer beforehand, ask God to help me do something, and usually stuff comes out. I was told years ago that you just open your mouth and let your heart do the talking. And yeah, it's nice to be asked. It got explained to me early in recovery that if I'm ever asked to do anything for my recovery, the answer is always yes. I'm tired, I can't be asked. I don't really fancy it. They're not excuses, they're not reasons for saying no. So my standard answer should be yes. So I try to stick to that, and it seems to do me well. So are there any newcomers here? First meeting? No? Cool. So I don't have to talk too much about my using. So I'll give you a little brief overview. You'll probably guessed by my accent, I'm not from Nottingham. That's where I live at the moment. I was born and raised down in Surrey.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
I was born and raised in Surrey.
What a welcome, eh? Welcome, Russ.
Sorry, not sorry. I was born and raised in Surrey, and not that it really makes any difference, but sometimes it's nice to have a bit of context, isn't it? And I was exactly the same as my mates. Went up and got pissed teenage years, experimented with drugs. And I was pretty much the same as all my mates. Looking back at it with some hindsight, perhaps I was more eager to go and do it again and again, a bit more frequently than they were. And I moved around the country quite a lot. And I moved to Manchester years ago when I was about 19, and that gave me a lot more freedom. And what I found was that I seemed to collect friends, and I seemed to like having all these acquaintances, and I knew hundreds of people, and I could flip between loads of different groups of people, and which was good for me in two ways, because I could kind of hide mainly my drinking and my using, but mainly my drinking. I could hide that because I could disperse it around different people. And also, with the benefit of hindsight, which is brilliant, I kind of, even back then, I kind of just about tolerated myself. That was like my best feeling ever about myself. I just about tolerated myself. And then I kind of convinced myself, in a weird way, that if I have all these groups of people that I know, then I can't be too bad if loads of people like me. And so, yeah, it served me quite well. And when I was about that age, 19 or so, it's when the first people started talking to me about my drinking. For me, mainly my drinking. They said, "Oh, are you an alcoholic?" No. What do you mean? They went, denial. That's like the first stage. And I said to them, they were quite a pretty girl as well. So I said, "Are you an alcoholic?" And she went, "No." And I went, denial. That's the first stage. And I was really pleased. And I was really pleased with my answer. And so I started doing this. There wasn't any massive light bulb moment when I first drank or took drugs. There wasn't any kind of, the heavens didn't open up and I felt amazing or anything. I just quite liked it. And I just quite liked getting fucked. And that was kind of it. And I found I could, hide in these different groups of people. And I could be different people, a different person in different groups of people. And I was there for university. I didn't really spend much time or effort studying. I spent most of it drinking, drugging and chasing women. And it was alright, but I didn't graduate. I kind of dropped out after a couple of years. And I moved back down south, and I did the same kind of thing with drinking, and I was about to be a bit more strained because I was living with my mum, poor girl. And but the drink started taking more of a regular appearance in my life. And I spent about a year down there, and then I moved to Brighton with work. I got promoted with work, and I remember thinking when I was leaving my hometown, because I was working in a pub, and I was thinking, at least when I leave Leatherhead, my hometown, at least I'm I'm not going to be drinking so much. So I moved to Brighton. And I learned a couple of things about addiction, not that I realised at the time in Brighton. And I was a sales rep. I used to drive around in a Vauxhall Vectra with my mobile phone strapped to my head reading A to Z, back when both those things were illegal and sat-navs were unheard of. And I used to do that, and I was quite young and I had a company car, and I was quite bravado about it and quite proud about it as well. And I was thinking, right, I can't get done for drink driving, It's right, Russ, smoke weed. And so I did that, and my tolerance of weed is pitiful. And I'd do it, and I'd get out my box. And then the next day I'd wake up, put my suit on, get in the Vectra, and I'd go off and try and sell stuff and try and build relationships and do all this salesy rubbish. And think about prices, products, and I couldn't do any of it because my head was up my arse. And I was recovering from the weed the night before. So that was the morning. By the time I recovered by the afternoon, I was pissed off for my behaviour in the morning. And late afternoon, what I was doing was thinking about going home and skinning up again. And I kind of realised when I came to recovery that I was using weed just the same as I'd use any other drug, and I was just using it and abusing it. And it became the cure for any of the problems it generated in a weird way. And so anyway, I moved from Brighton, because that was obviously not healthy for me. And I moved to Edinburgh, and I remember thinking when I left Brighton, at least I'm going to stop doing so many pills. Because it used to cancel out half my week. So I moved to Scotland, which may not have been that wise in hindsight, but yeah, I moved to Scotland, and a few things happened here. One was that when I was about in my mid-20s, I got my first bout of depression, and first kind of, hit of depression. I was really confused, didn't know what was going on. And obviously it wasn't anything to do with the drink and the drugs, far be it. But I did know that the drink and the drugs gave me like a 4-hour window, as I called it. It gave me a 4-hour window for my mental ill health where I was all right. And so I started doing that. And I also, about this time, my kind of drinking using changed. And instead of wanting to go and be around people and try and paper over my low self-esteem with some meaningless friendships, I kind of started seeking out being by myself. And that's where I wanted to be. And I was working in pubs and clubs, and I again knew hundreds of people, because that's what kind of fixed me. And I'd go and find the shitty spit and sawdust pubs and want to be by myself. And I found kind of a lot of solace in that. And that's what I started wanting to do. And then that coupled with my mental health, my drinking, my using was increasing like throughout my 20s, and it just kind of assumed new proportions. And then I eventually I figured out what my problem was, and my problem was my job. And a friend of a friend was a career coach, and figured out what I was going to do and what was giving me all these depression problems. And it was obviously my job, and I wasn't feeling happy with my job. I was selling pensions and investments, which isn't very exciting, and that was obviously a big problem. So I decided I want to become a nurse. And do something different, and it kind of fitted my morals, and I did have morals when I was drinking and using, but my morals I could frequently ignore, and they kind of, I heard it once shared, they kind of scabbed over, and so my morals scabbed over, but they're still there, and they're still quite a driving force. But yeah, so I decided problem was the job, and so I was going to become a nurse. So I decided another move was obviously necessary, so I moved back over from Scotland down to London. And I remember leaving Scotland thinking, at least I'm going to stop doing so much fucking cocaine. And because that was obviously Scotland's problem. And then I moved down not far from my hometown, and then into South London, and about this time, for me mainly it was my drinking. 95% was drink, and I'd be seeking out places by myself, and it's the first time I read the 12 Steps. I was pissed in an internet cafe, reading PDFs of the big book, going, yeah, God, fuck that. And I printed off some stuff and consequently forgot about it. And I'd had help before about my drinking, because that's what I thought the problem was. And I've been abstinent from alcohol a couple of times for a few weeks each time, and I remember once I was off it for about 6 weeks, and I had this counsellor. This is back in Scotland. I had this counsellor, and we tried controlled drinking. That didn't work, obviously. And then we tried abstinence, and I tried really hard. And I wasn't abstinent from anything else other than alcohol. And but I lost loads of weight. I was hitting the gym all the time. I was feeling great. I was eating healthily. My bank balance was much improved, and things were going really well. And I remember I went down on holiday, and I was in this pub in London, and one of my mates said to me, "Oh, Russ, do you want a pint? Are you drinking? I'm not drinking it." And I went, "Oh," and it was just that queer state before the first drink, and I suddenly forgot all about the shit, and just thought, "Yeah, okay, then I did." And I started off again, and yeah, forgot where I was. London. Yeah, so I was living with this girl, and I was working in this old people's home, and it kind of fit me better because my morals kind of scabbed over, but I still felt, man, and I like helping people, and I like doing these sort of things, and we were in this relationship, and the relationship really wasn't a very healthy relationship, but it was a relationship all the same, and certainly wasn't helped by my drinking, and I moved to Scotland. I moved to Nottingham, and I moved to Nottingham to become a nurse, and that was about 10 years ago. And I remember leaving London thinking, I'm not going to drink so much in Nottingham. And so I moved to Nottingham, and this was kind of the end game of my drinking and using the last 18 months of it. And I was in this nice swanky flat in Nottingham for the same price as like a tiny one-bed flat in shitty South London. We had like this big 2-bedroom modern flat with like dishwasher and everything. And so I was in this flat, and me and the girlfriend were having continued arguments and periods of not talking, which obviously wasn't my fault. And she used to criticise me. She said to me, she's from Uganda, and I'll try and do her accent, but I'll fail. Russell, what is wrong with you? What? That's terrible. Russell, what is wrong with you? What is wrong? And sometimes I'd snap back and I'd say it's because I've got a fucking shitty girlfriend. And I'm kind like that. And sometimes, which the bit she remembers, which is luckily enough, I'd say, I don't know. And that was about as honest as I could have got. And I remember I was walking up to the offie one day, and I was in that flat with her, and I can't remember where she was, but I was walking up to the offie and had one of the sanest thoughts I'd had in a while, and that was, Russ, you realise if you go to the offie now, you're going to be pissed for a few days until the money runs out. And I'm like, yep, all right then, and carried off on my way. But that was about one of the most sanest thoughts I've had. And then she left, and it didn't really go on good terms. The police got called a few times, horrible. And the last I saw of her for about a year and a half was being carted off by about 10 police people who stormtrooped into our flat. Anyway, so I had this flat by myself, and my best thinking thought, well, I'm here for another 5 weeks. I can't sleep in either of the beds because I keep pissing them, and I can't sleep on the sofa either because that's the right fucker to clean when I piss on it. And so I've got this IKEA rug like in the lounge, and I'm just next to the skybox. I can sleep there. Carpet's going to be protected. And alcoholics have strange managements of piss. And so for 5 weeks, what I did was I just lived in this flat in the front room on the floor, drinking cider, watching Discovery Channel because I'm educated or something, and and just doing it. And anyway, I came to move out of that flat, and I peeled back this rug after thinking I was clever, but he just let it all through, and the carpet was unbelievably horrible, and I had to pay for that, but never mind. That was my best thinking. And I kind of moved to the house I lived in just before I moved into my flat, and I kind of saw the last year or so of my drinking and using, and it wasn't really much fun anymore. There wasn't that much of the trying to get loads of different groups of mates. I had a bit of that still left in me, but most of it I just wanted to be by myself, because if I was with someone else, they wouldn't be drinking the same level as me or using the same level as me when I did drugs. They'd just be annoying me, and I'd be having to talk to them. I'll be having to talk to them and, hey, how you doing? It's nice to see you. Blah, blah, blah. What time is it? It's this time. How much money have I got left? Have I got this much money? How long are we going to stay here for? Fuck, you know. Da, 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 da. And then trying to have a conversation at the same time, just thinking all these things about where I can go and get some more. And when I can socially acceptable, what's the socially acceptable time for me to fuck off? And go and be by myself, because that's where it made sense. I didn't have like an overwhelming desire to be by myself. But if I was by myself, then no one would criticise, tick. I probably wouldn't get in as much trouble, tick. I'd save a lot of money, tick. I wouldn't wake up in strange places, tick. I wouldn't lose glasses, wallets, phones, keys, all the annoying things that I'd lose. And it just ticked a load of boxes. Why didn't I think of this before? It's a bit like White Cider. I found White Cider about the same time. And it was like a dirty Christmas present. It was so good, but it was so wrong. And what I tend to do is that I'd be at university studying to become a nurse, and I'd drive home from the hospital, and then I'd be having a conversation with myself. Russ, why don't you go to that pub there? Or why don't you go and have a cup? No, I don't want to do that. But Russ, it's been a tiring day. That's true. It's been emotionally draining, hasn't it? Yeah, maybe. And I'd have this conversation with myself, and I think once, maybe twice, I put it off for a couple of hours. It was about the most I got, 2 hours. And it always won. I kind of had this illusion, most addicts alcohol suffer from, I had this illusion that I had a choice. I was deluded that I had a choice. I didn't really have a choice, but I didn't know that at the time. I thought I did. I thought I was just sad and pathetic. I went to my first 12-step meeting about then. And I remember thinking to myself, what a sad, pathetic excuse of a 30-year-old man you are, Russ, for having to go to a place like this. You're a fuckwit. And these kind of thoughts were very constant with me. Calling myself every other name under the sun I would do. If I forgot someone's name, Russ, you're a fucking idiot, you're a fucking idiot, Russ, you're a fucking idiot. If I thought I did anything wrong, especially Russ, you're a bad person, Russ, you're a bad person. And I repeated it to myself constantly, and I lived under this kind of mantra of berating myself. And it's I described it once, it's a bit like pissing in a wetsuit. It's kind of comforting but wrong at the same time. And I did that a lot. I just barely tolerated myself. And so what I do is we're driving home, so I'm getting distracted. How much time? Oh shit, I always talk too much about my drinking, usually, sorry. And I've forgotten about that. So anyway, I'll move on. Yeah, and what drove me into recovery is I remember sitting in this shared house and with full bottles of cider on my right, empty bottles of cider on my left in front of my computer desk. Sometimes the empty ones would get filled up again. Sometimes I get confused which was which. And what would happen is that I'd have this doom cloud come and descend on me. I called it my doom cloud. Basically what it meant was it usually wasn't when I was drinking. I was miserable when I was drinking. I had about a 10-second happiness when I first started. Then I was miserable and getting increasingly pissed. But this doom cloud used to settle on me, and sometimes being off it for a day or 2 days, in between that kind of sleep where you just want to sleep forever and you don't want to wake up, and or you're kind of in and out of sleep for a few days. And this doom cloud would come and settle on me, and I'd be filled with angst and guilt and remorse. And it was just overpowering, and it was so uncomfortable. And it used to come at me for no reason. Sometimes a reason, sometimes an imagined reason, sometimes a reason that hasn't even happened yet, but I'm imagining it's going to happen. And I just feel, ugh. And I remember thinking to myself, which was my second Thessalus thought, was there must be more to life than this. There must be more to life than this. And I went and got help, and I got help slowly. And I didn't want to rush into anything. And I dragged my feet. I went back to some 12-step fellowships. I was very lucky at the time. There was a clinic in Nottingham that would take us 28 days in the NHS. And I went there and then got reintroduced to 12-step programs. Figured out I was an addict as well as an alcoholic, or depending on how you want to name it. And I had a problem with all substances. And then I was very fortunate. I got Nottingham City Council, bless them. I think I paid about 20 quid in council tax up to that point. They decided to invest how many thousands of pounds and send me to rehab, which I was very grateful for. And I was very lucky, and I kind of knew that I couldn't really look after myself at the time, and I got looked after, and I'm very grateful for that. The government gave me some money to spend. My rent got paid. I was really grateful for that. And I went to rehab, and I got taken through the steps there. and I hit a lot of meetings, and that was good, and I got a peace of mind, and my headspace changed. That berating myself and talking bad to myself, that kind of evaporated when I, instead of saying, Russ, you're a bad person, someone suggested I said, Russ, you're a fallible human being. And I started swapping that for berating myself. And within a couple of weeks, that kind of stopped. And I was amazed that my mental landscape changed. I used to see these people and they kind of had this sense of serenity and this peace of mind, and I really wanted that. I've forgotten about the white side and the drugs and everything, and I just wanted the peace of mind because that looked cool. And so I really chucked myself as far as I could into recovery, and I always had that willingness, which is the only thing I really had at the beginning. I was honest when it suited me, I was dishonest when it suited me, I was open-minded when it suited me, and I was closed-minded when it suited me. But I just had that willingness. I didn't want to fuck up, and I didn't want to let people down, but I just wanted that. It wasn't what I didn't want to get back, it was I just wanted that peace of mind, and I wanted that sense of serenity, and I got it, and I put some work in, and against my best thoughts, I thought it's never going to work for me, it's never going to work for me, it's never going to work for me. I'm either A, too clever, or B, too much for a fuckwit and not worth it. Sometimes in the same breath I'll be thinking the same different opposite things. It wasn't going to work, but it did, because it always does. And my recovery kind of ticked along. I'm going to go a bit quicker now. And my recovery ticked along for a good 3-4 years, and I was sponsoring people. I was going to a lot of meetings, and occasionally I'd even do a written inventory. And my big book firmly gathered dust on my shelf. But I loved the big book, but I just didn't touch it. I loved it from afar. And then a few things happened, and one was my sponsor of 5 years or 6 years relapsed, and 2, I had problems with porn on the internet, and I found I couldn't do that. I couldn't stop, and kind of CA started in Nottingham, and so I had to get myself a new sponsor, which meant going through the steps again. Bollocks, this work. And I went to this other fellowship, not substances, for behaviours and stuff, and they have to work a real tight program, and it's kind of natural to have sexual urges and stuff, and they have to be really on top of it. And they said, no, Russ, you want to be doing this, this and this. And this is all stuff I knew, but I just kind of let slip. Things like reading the Just for Today card, I fucking love that. Doing a written inventory at night, making sure I do my prayers properly, make sure I speak to people, make sure I'm praying for other people, make sure I'm owning my own shit, and I kind of forgot that after not doing a written inventory for so long. And then, it's about 3 years ago. Yeah, about 3 years ago. And since then, I kind of dusted off the big book, and CA started, and we really had no idea how we were supposed to do it. We just heard that it was quite a lot about the big book, which I quite liked, because it gave me not an excuse to read it, but I already liked it. But now I had to start picking it up and using it. And since then, my recovery's got even better, and my sense of self-esteem's got better. My relationships with others has increased again, and I got married last year. Cool. I was in this meeting in Coventry, a CA meeting in Coventry, and I said, yeah, so I'm off to go and meet this woman I met on the internet in Colombia. And so I did, and I'm reading the big book. It says, do we have, what's my motivation? Well, I'm going to go and meet the woman, I'll fall in love with her. Am I looking to just get some vicarious pleasure from being there? No, not really. I couldn't really give a shit. Not from, I was obviously going there for pleasure, but not from any coke. And yeah, and I went there and had a fucking fantastic time. Went to a 12-step meeting there, all in Spanish. Didn't understand any of the words, but understood what the sentiment was. And read a reading like a 5-year-old, and it's brilliant. And since then, I've been trying to get us closer to the book. I think we were talking on the way here, and a lot of my recovery, the first few years of my recovery, it wasn't really from the book. It was from other places and other things, and people had said, and some sayings and stuff. And it just wasn't as good, and it wasn't as wholesome. And in the last 3 years, I've kind of got back into the book a lot more. I started trying to sponsor like they do in the book. I started to kind of carry the message like they do in the book. And I'm learning, I was talking about this on the way down, and I'll finish on this, is that I heard this one guy say, and he said, the first 5 years of my recovery, I learned to love myself. And that was totally true for me. If you ask me like at day 2, do you love yourself? No, fuck off. Day, however many 5 years, I'd have said, well, I'm not sure. And so the first 5 years I kind of learned to love myself. And I think the next 5 years what I'm learning to do is learning to love others without being selfish. And it's a real fucking tough ask. But I'm getting there. And I love being part of CA. It's where I feel at home. It's where I feel most relaxed, where I feel most energised. It's lovely to be asked to share here. I'm sorry if I've bored you all. And I'll leave it there, thanks.
No.